I'd like to welcome to the stage our founder and CEO, Raphael Ouzan. Raphael.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you. I mean, it's crazy to think about what happened just in, what, was it a month since Gen AI Summit? Like just how much noise, how much change, how many things are just going on all the time. And clearly, like, we're here with some of the best builders, thinkers, investors, researchers, operators, executives that are building and working in this field to curate what actually matters, to get the signal from the noise and really understanding what this means for us and what this means for the future. So, one thing that we've learned, I think, over the past few weeks of working intensely with many companies on some of those changes and many builders, is that this is not just a question of technology. Like all the best things in life, it has to do with people and corporate structures and the way we get organized to do work. And in fact, it seems that one of the first things that appear in this period of rapid change is the need to experiment. I think one of the most uncanny insights that we have realized, I think together working with even some of the people building the very core technology behind generative AI, as what A.Teams working with Inflection AI, you may have heard they launched recently with Pi, or I don't know, the folks that are putting the T in GPT, is that even them don't necessarily know what are the use cases that will ensue from getting smart essentially with data and taking the next leap with this kind of capabilities. And that means that at the core of all of this, there is a shift that is most pressed upon us to experiment, to iterate, when we don't know what the solution is, but we know that we have opportunities to do things so much better. And if we zoom out a little bit, all of us here are kind of like in the eye of the storm when you think about it. Like on one end, you've got, oh yeah, that's the storm. You've got a very unique moment in time where like this market is just incredibly volatile, pushing companies to have this almost existential imperative for greater productivity and greater efficiency. I mean, how often do we see that every company from a small startup that just raised a seed round to board meetings of a Fortune 5 company are talking about the same thing? They have the same keyword that they talk about around the table, which is efficiency. A time where companies are now asked to manage the unknown. It was hard enough to manage the known, now you got to manage the unknown. So that's what's happening on the with employers, with companies. At the same time that, of course, we see that we always were told that technology is moving very fast, right? Like that's kind of the thing that is actually known. But now we realize we're actually in the flat part of the exponential curve, because now it's moving up and up and up very fast. And not just that it's changing, it's that is potentially disruptive to some of the business models and companies that I think a few months ago we would have thought there's no way they could be threatened. You know which companies we're talking about. And if that wasn't enough, COVID-19 accelerated, fueled further, maybe the most drastic set of disruptions in the job market and in what workers, particularly knowledge workers, expect. And we realized that this deal that we had with full-time employment for the longest time in tech, and especially, is kind of coming to an end. That this is not about that. Full-time employment doesn't necessarily mean stability the way it was stability for our parents, and we have to take things in our own hands. So with all these changes happening together, you see that this crazy things that we're talking about that is sometimes topping the headlines is absolutely not happening in a vacuum. It's happening at a time where everything is changing. And what it means for us is that being like a massive cruise ship not going to be very helpful to pivot around and be agile and nimble when the waters are so stormy and the winds are changing so quickly. I think that that's the moment to have a lot of small boats, to be more of a flotilla. And I think what we want to talk about today is about building the small boats and to actually accelerate into the wave and pass it. Okay, so let's talk about what that means for companies and what we've discovered working with many of you, many builders and companies. So particularly in a time like this where everybody's challenged, we see some pretty great opportunities there. There is an expectation as well from customers and employees of companies, because unlike many waves of technology that happened before, that was kind of arcane and inaccessible. Like think about like coding and like crazy databases and things like that. Like it's not something you talk about with your parents. But you know, given the ChatGPT type of thing, well, you go to the doctor and they talk to you about like they ask you your thoughts about AI, right? You probably had that, and that's something you talk about at a dinner table. So there's now a built-up expectation. So when you think about employees at companies, there's a lot of drudgery. There's a lot of like wasted time doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And remember, we just said like every company is talking about efficiency, like whatever can be streamlined and made more efficient. If we can do more with less, you absolutely have to, and it's existential for so many companies. Well, we see that there already is an incredible opportunity to build the type of tooling and support for teams within companies that almost feels like putting on an Ironman suit over teams to accelerate what they're doing so that they can focus on the things that matter most. You know, there's this thought that we talked about, I think, last time a bit, where, 10x type of knowledge workers with the right tooling, with the right teams, and with the right workflows that are now being built up and iterated on could become 100x type of people. I think in our panel, we're talking about, what we would do with that extra time. Well, probably good things, but definitely an avenue that is really significant at a time where the economy and companies really need that, if they can experiment with those type of things. Then the other thing is about delighting customers, being able to take that quantum leap with digital experiences, with customer experiences. I mean, it kind of sucks when it feels that your products ask too much from users, from their customers, that the computer is not working for you, that you're working for them. If we can get a little bit smarter with data, with personalization, finally we can do products that are delightful. And you give a shot at so many products that we interact with to actually get better, to improve digital experience to the next level. And lastly, when you think of this is none of this is actually very new. Like we talked about big data, we talked about AI, we talked about all this stuff for well over a decade. And I remember those gatherings. In some way, I think we were joking with one of the panelists that the big winner of big data was an AI, was the companies building data lakes. Because like you were basically going this like crazy projects and be like, yeah, you just need to structure all of your data set across the company. But like, don't worry about it. It's just going to take like 3-4 years and like tens of millions of dollars. And by the time that you're done, you're like, oh, amazing. I finally did it. My data lake project is done. The company has changed. There's all these new business units. Like actually, you don't even have the more recent data and it's actually irrelevant. And you always have the business kind of getting upset at the poor data guys, being like, no, but now I don't want to know this question. I want to know this other question. And you tell me that you can actually pull that data. Well, the big change here is speed and cost. The fact that you can put unstructured data and ask intelligent questions about it is essentially enabling us to take all of the promises that we've had for well over a decade of what we could do with data and actually make them possible and tangible, and in many cases, doable in a matter of like a couple of days. Put this little data set. You don't need the whole power of GPT-4 for this. You really just need to be able to parse it out and ask good questions about it. And that is a really big deal. And it's like we all are owed that in some way. And now we're getting the tools to do so, which is why today we're all here very excited to announce the A.Team AI practice that we are launching today. Let me click that. Yes. This is like previewing today. Thanks to the work that we've done with many companies across so many different verticals, seeing people pioneering new ways of experimentation. We basically built out the offering that enables you to take advantage of those type of opportunities in a way that is incredibly fast, faster than anything I've ever seen in software and technology before, in fact. So the way it works is actually pretty simple. You bring in the type of fractional chief AI officer or architect that comes in and helps ideate, strategize, diagnose the different opportunities, coming up with different prototyping ideas and experiment ideas. And coming into the experimentation phase of actually scoping and building out different capabilities very quickly to bring them from big ideas to something very tangible that can be seen and valued, and you can ask questions around how that works and how that can help. Then going into building to take the key initiatives and the key areas of growth of the company and basically saying, okay, how can we actually make that smart? How can we make data work for us? How can we reduce the drudgery of our team so that people can be more productive and actually do the work that they like to do, that actually creates value? And that's actually a pretty quick approach. Like few dozens of companies have already been engaged with us, from companies that maybe some companies even never saw beyond IT, and yet they're now integrating some of those capabilities to the core of their practices, and tech companies alike that now can do so much more with some of these capabilities. And the deal about speed is very oftentimes, I think, underrated. The difference between a bike and a rocket, it's really just that, speed, right? And being able to move fast, to reduce the cost of doing something with your data means a lot, and enables you to take everything you've built so far and everything you want to accomplish and look at it slightly differently. And there are different ways of integration depending on the use case. If we're not talking about private data, then okay, you can use one of the readily available models. If we're talking about very sensitive data, like I said before, you don't need the full power of a GPT-4. You can create a specialized model with this data on premise or in a private cloud to start asking intelligent questions. And that means that in some cases, we've seen in 48 hours, the type of applications that you say, oh, wow, this could really change everything for our customers, or this could change everything for our own team. And that's what we're excited to see. I think we have another bunch of hackathons actually coming up for that, and teams deployed to do so. Can't wait to see what they come up with. When actually, the craziest experiment of all, I remember Joe was telling me this story. I actually didn't know about it. Was what was it, last Thanksgiving? At OpenAI, they were building out this, they were kind of hacking on this chat thing because they were concerned that someone else was doing it on their API. And that little experiment, when it launched, got to 100 million users faster than anything else. I think there's something about experimentation that as builders, I think we really understand. As structures and the way we work doesn't typically happen. But if there's ever a time to get together and build, it's now. So we're excited to launch this. There's the network of A-Teamers couldn't be more excited to team up and bring this kind of, like I said, it's not just a technology challenge. It requires convergence of skill set, of capabilities across design, product, and data. There's training the models, but also integrating it into all the different capabilities and workflows of a company. I'm excited to team up to make those things happen. So here we are, and looking for way more, and excited to partner with all of you to build better, faster, and smarter. Thank you so much, everyone.